want you to turn your Bible, if you will, to a familiar book, Job, the first chapter. Job, the book of Job, the first chapter. Trusting God in darkness. Trusting God in darkness. Trusting God in darkness. The book of Job was written by unknown author. There are those who have theory that perhaps Moses was the author. Some even say that perhaps Job was the author of his own book. Some say that Solomon perhaps was the author. But it's an unknown book. It's a book of poetry. It's a book of learning and teaching. It's a book that we use whenever we're going through trials and tribulations. It's a book that we use when things are going array and things happen in our lives and events happen that are out of our control, and we compare the life of Job to our lives. Job was one of the wealthiest men in the Bible, if not the wealthiest man of that particular time. Job was an individual who had an interest in worshiping God and fellowshipping with God in spirit. He was one that had a love for his family. It lifts up that Job even sacrificed for his children as they were celebrating there in their oldest son's house. Job had an interest in the community because Job was one who set an example for those individuals who were around him and there in the community in which he lived. Being wealthy and having as much as Job had, he still didn't put those things in front of God. It is said, the Bible lets us know that Job feared God and lived an upright life. One of the things that we have to make sure of and guard ourselves against is that we don't let the things that God blesses us with become our God. We have to make sure that the things that God blesses us with are things that we're used to help edify the body of Christ and used as an instrument by which others can be in benefit from the blessing that God has blessed us with. You know that I've told you before, and I'll say it again. God didn't give you that big increase in that wonderful job whereby you could just have a good life for yourself. That was that the body of Christ be blessed. Those individuals who are in need be blessed. Those individuals who come short be blessed. In other words, you are a helper. You know that God is a giver. For God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten son, that whosoever believe in him would not perish but have everlasting life. If God is a giver, those individuals who are part of God's kingdom must also be part of the attributes of God, which is being a giver. And that's not just talking about monetary things or your material things. It's talking about your time. It's talking about your wisdom. It's talking about your character, living a life that helps other people's lives be better. Job was one that worldwide, there was a question that was asked of Job after all the things that he went through. There was a question that was asked, not Job, but there's a question that's asked that we all ask that same question. Why is it, how is it, and why is it that those individuals who live an upright life go through tragedies? Why is it that the righteous suffer? Why is it that those things happen to those individuals who are living righteous? And that's a human expression. That's a human emotion, because simply we feel like when people are doing things the wrong way or doing things that's contrary to God, they should be punished. And rightly so, and God will punish. Revenge is mine, saith the Lord. And so therefore, when we look at those situations, we feel like when people are doing things right, that things that benefit right should come toward them. But we look at things that's being right as different from what God look at things as being right. What God knows is about our lives is everything that happens to us is to make us better. And one of the things that happens to us is God uses those things, those tragedies that happen in our life to grow us up, to strengthen us. And it's difficult to see the end of a storm when you're in the middle of a storm. It's difficult to see a better day ahead when the day in which you're living is a day of difficulty and a day of triumphs. It's difficult to even imagine how things are going to get better when every day seems to be the same. But see, I want you to understand something that, as David said, as I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will feel no evil. In other words, what David is saying is, while you're in your storms, if you don't get nothing else, remember this, keep on moving, because David was saying, don't just make a tent in your bad times and your heartaches and your difficulty. Continue to move through it. As David said, as I go through the valley of the shadow of death, not build my tent in it, not set up camp there and remain there forever. What God is saying to us through his word is, keep moving in the middle of your situation. Yeah, and so here it is. We find that this particular book and these particular questions raised by Job and people that have read Job finds out that Job had a loss of family, he had loss of health, and he also had loss of wealth. In other words, Job was attacked on every single end of his life. But yet Job did not turn on God. One of the things I found after almost 31 years of pastoring is this, that immediately when something happens in individuals' lives, and I've counseled with individuals, I've watched how the church individuals come in and things have gone on in their lives, that immediately when something happens, the first person that usually that people turn loose is God. Whether it's financial or whether it's health or whether it has to do with your wealth. Immediately when something happened, individuals turn God loose. Now, one thing I would understand is the only help that we have is God. And so therefore, here's the thing, watch this, that if you're in a situation and watch this, if we're in Christ and he's in us, if we're in a situation, he's in it with us. And so therefore, if he's in it with us, then we can't lose. In the midst of darkness, we have to see the light, because Jesus is the light of the world. And if he's the light of the world, then we too must see that light. And watch this. And once we get in him, then we also too becomes that light. Ye are the light of the world, and your light should shine, and watch this, and not when things are just going well. Your light should shine even in darkness. In other words, you have tragedies in your life. The world should see your light. There are difficulties in your life. The world should see your light. I know that it's hard. I know that it's difficult, but the world should see your light. You should have tragedies in your family. The world should see your light. You have tragedy, your health failed, and the world should see your light. And the thing I want you to understand is that most of the times we look at situations and we measure up those situations based on our life and our relationship that we think that we have with God. And so now here it is. I'm going through it, but I paid my taxes. I made sure that I filed my income. I made sure that I speak to my neighbors. I make sure that I help those individuals out. I make sure that I rear my children right. And I'm still going through hell. I want to understand, God is still with us. He said, I'll never leave you nor forsake you. He told us in Deuteronomy, I'm going to make you the head, not the tail. I'm going to make you, watch this, above and not beneath. And if God is saying that to us, we have to believe God's promise. When God promises us something, we have to stand on the promise. Don't matter how things look. Job talks about his suffering. Not Job, but the Bible talks about Job's suffering. Job went through some things that most of us wouldn't have survived. There are those who would have quit. There are those who would have turned back when they start going through things. But Job persevered. You have to persevere through suffering. To live a life of faith requires perseverance. It requires, despite of going through the torment, despite of going through trials, we have to make sure that we don't turn our backs on God. I told a story some years back about this young man who was married, a preacher, actually he was a pastor, and he was married, true story, came out of Detroit. This particular individual was married, and being married as a young preacher, his wife got pregnant, or she was pregnant, she became pregnant, and as the wife became pregnant, one of the things that happened as he was doing his pastoral duties and making sure that he was taking care of his wife, every evening before they eat supper, they would go walking. And this particular evening, right before supper, he and she was headed out the door to go walking. While they were on their way out the door, the phone rang. When the phone rang, what he did was he stopped for a moment, answered the phone, and told her to go on in front of him, or ahead of him, and he would catch up to her later. He stayed on the phone longer than what he thought he would have stayed on the phone. And when he got off the phone, he left behind her, walking in the direction in which they walk every day. And when he got start out of his house in that direction, his neighbor's son pulls up. His neighbor's son pulls up, and he stopped and began to talk to his dad. And he began to tell his dad that, I think I hit something down the road. And his dad said, what do you think you hit? He said, I don't know. I think it may have been a deer. Well, the pastor and two of his members, the young boy and his dad, the three of them started walking in the direction of which the deer may have been hit, which happened to be the same direction that the pastor's wife had left going into. When they arrived there at the ravine and they looked down the embankment, what they seen was that the pastor's wife had been hit. She was lying down, dead, down in the ravine. Here it is, the pastor now is looking down at his wife who's now been hit, and now she's lost her life and the child's life as well. You can only imagine the anguish that was going in through his head and through his mind as he's looking at the young boy who just ran over his wife and looking down the embankment and seeing his wife and his young child dead. Well, this particular young pastor, he held his composure. And so the week went on, and he made plans for her funeral. And then after the funeral, the church leaders, they all got together and they decided, here's what we're going to do. We're going to give him some time off, whereby he can, watch this, get himself together, grow back strength, get his composure worked out. But that Sunday morning, what they didn't know was the young pastor showed back up at church. And when he came in to church, he said, I just want to express something to you. Watch this. I came into church today because I want to give God some praise. I came to church. Now watch, I want you to understand that this is unusual. This is unique, because that's not the way people handle situations. He said, I came in to give God praise. And he came in and began to start praising and worshiping God for the life that he had with his wife prior to her dying. He came in to give God praise for the life the time that they had spent together. And the church was watch this. They were astonished, in a state of shock. How is it that this young man, now his wife is deceased, and the young child in which she was carrying is also deceased, but he's here praising God? Watch this. He just want to give God some thanks for all that God has already done. I don't know where God is taking me to, but I understand that God is in everything. And if God is in everything, whatever it is that have come against me and upon me, God was in total control. Wow. To live a life of faith requires perseverance despite torment, despite trials, despite suffering, despite coming up short. Job worked steadfast through all those things that happened to him. Y'all do understand that Satan himself brings attacks against finances and physical abilities, and it causes individuals to have loss of life and loss of limbs and loss of cars and loss of houses. But I want you to understand, he can do nothing at all. Listen to me now. Unless God allows it. Whatever my situation is and whatever it is that I'm going through, God allowed it to happen to me. Then watch this. And so if God allows it, that means that God knew and knows that I will be able to handle it. See, the thing I want you to understand is, I've watched even in my life as an example, the individuals, because of what they see now, pastor is living here and pastor's driving that, and pastor have this and pastor have that. But see, the thing is, don't want to be somebody without knowing their whole story. See, because you don't know how he got from where he was to where he is. Because see, the thing I want you to understand is that same desire to be what we have seen other people be, like the same as we say, well, I'm going through it, I'm just suffering, I'm reading the book of Job, I'm just suffering just like Job. But you have to understand that if you're going to live a life like Job, then attach yourself to Job's story. Now, when you attach yourself to Job's story, what you'll find out was Job had 7 sons and 3 daughters and lost them all the same day. If you want to attach yourself to Job's story, Job had 7,000 sheep and they were all burnt up the same day, and the servants that was keeping them. If you want to attach yourself to Job, you want to watch it. Job had 3,000 camel and lost all of them the same day. If you want to attach yourself to Job, Job had 500 teams of oxen and lost all of them the same day. Now, a team of oxen don't mean just one. If he had 500 times 2, then that's 1,000. Y'all need to hear what I'm saying. And so here it is. Job lost all of them the same day. When you hook yourself up to Job and you ask God to give you strength just like Job, then also what to understand, in order for you to have strength like Job, you got to be a part of Job-like story. If you want to be a part of Job-like story, expect some things to happen in your life. And when things happen in your life, it's to make you better. Woo! 500 female donkeys and many servants that worked for him. And Job lost them all the same day. Tell me that's not a dark time. See, I want you to understand something. When you're going through a dark time, then watch this. It's hard to see the light. Or when you're going through a dark time, I understand. But what Job did, rather than curse God, what Job let us know was, naked I came into the world, and naked shall I return. Naked I came into the world from my mother's womb, and naked shall I return back to God. Blessed be the name of the Lord. See, what Job was, rather than focusing on Job was focusing on God. What Job had already done was, Job had already had burnt offerings for his children. And here's what he said, Reverend Green. He said, it could be that they have sinned against God. So I'm going to do these sacrifices. While they're at the oldest son's house drinking and having a good time, Job is at home doing sacrifices. Y'all ain't hear what I'm saying. In the daytime, make sure that you're sending up timber. When things are going well, make sure that you're in touch with God. When things are going good, make sure that God is being acknowledged. Yeah. Woo! So if you want to be a part of Pastor Sample's story, hook yourself up to a hoe and take a week out of school every year, 2 weeks really, out of school every year, to make sure you get the weeds chopped out from around the cotton. If you want to be a part of Pastor Sample's story, take another week out of school and go pick the cotton, watch this, while other kids are at school. If you want to be a part of Pastor Sample's story, then get you a double house. And when the refrigerator goes out and you don't have no money to buy a refrigerator, and it happen in winter time, and you take the trash can outside and put your meats in the trash can outside to make sure that your meat stay frozen. That was the time when Indiana was froze from October all the way through pretty much May. And so here we are. We make groceries and take it outside to the trash can. If you want to be a part of Pastor Sample's story, then watch it. If you want to be a part of Pastor Sample's blessing, be a part of Pastor Sample's story. That's right. If you want to be a part of Pastor Sample's, look, here it is right now. Watch this. We were bused in my lifetime 4 times to get the opportunity to be in class with whites, Caucasians. And I never did. But I was bused 4 times. The first time we were bused, when we arrived there, I can remember we had no books. All we had was workbooks from a sheet. Because all the books was taken by the school that was there before us that happened to be Caucasian, and they took their books with them and they started a private school. of which they still have that private school. And so we'd have no books. No books. If you want to be a part of my story, a part of my blessings, then be a part of my story. See, the thing I want you to understand is, now that's not saying that God hadn't been good. What they're saying is that through it all, I've learned to lean and depend on God. And so here it is. The example that Job has left for us to follow is an example of him being faithful enough and persevering through whatever he was going through. And so the thing is, there was a meeting held one day in heaven. And said that Job showed up. Satan showed up. And when Satan showed up, God asked Satan, watch this, where are you coming from? I'm going to and fro in the earth, walking up and down in it. Here's what God said, not Job. Not Satan. Here's what God said. Have you considered my servant Job? Satan didn't ask for Job. God considered Job. Have you considered my servant Job? Here's what Satan told him. Watch this. It wasn't that I hadn't been looking. It ain't that I hadn't been. It's not that I hadn't been there. But what I noticed was you have a hedge around him and all that he have. Watch this. But I can tell you this. If you take away the hedge, I cause him to curse you to your face. God began to let him know. Well, watch this. You have the right to do whatever it is that you want to do, but just don't touch him. Wow. You ever wonder what happens when you're considered? Some things come upon you because of things that you do to cause it. Other things come upon you because God allows it to strengthen you, to pull you out of darkness into his marvelous light, to give you strength enough to tell other people and show other people that God is real. And so watch this. What Satan did was, it reads like it all happened right immediately. But what Satan did was he waited for the appropriate time. Y'all watch this now. There was a time when Job's children were all gathered together celebrating in one place. It was a time when the sheep were being fed. It was a time when the oxen was in the field. It was a time when everyone was out exposed. And then what Satan did is Satan began to attack him one by one. One of the servants came to him and let him know, watch this, your sheep, watch, a fire from heaven came and burnt up all your sheep. Wow. And the servants, all 7,000 of them. And I alone are left to tell the story. Now, when you looked at that from a spiritual perspective, you notice how the sheep was burnt up. And God, watch this, God takes a burnt offering unto himself. The sheep weren't taken. The sheep burnt up. And now, watch this. Before all these things happened, now, watch this. There was an offering that was made, and God made the offering to himself. The sheep, 7,000 sheep burnt up. Now, I don't know what you know it or not. Animals don't just necessarily stand in one spot, all of them together, and allow things to happen. You got 7,000 of them that they're going to be scattered all about. But when God takes care of something, you can't hide, you can't get cover. And when God destroys, he destroys wherever you are. 7,000 at one time, 3,000 camel, 5,000 team of oxen, 500 team of oxen, 500 female donkeys, all in the same day. Wow. Sound like a hurricane? Sound like a tornado? Sound like a horrific storm? I can see down the road Job looking, and he was not one more. Not one more. Everyone had approached him up to this point, had brought him bad news. The storm kept getting worse. It got worse from the sheep. It got even worse from the camel. Got even worse from the oxen, and then it got worse from the donkeys. Now, what could this be? He shows up. He said there was a strong wind came in and blew in all four walls of the house, and where your children, your young men were having a dinner and a celebration, and killed them all. Job didn't, watch this, Job didn't curse God. Job didn't get mad. Job ripped off his clothes. He shaved off his head. And then what he did was he put on sackcloth and then went and prayed and worship God. Naked came I into the world, and naked shall I return. How many of you all, when you're considered, do you still even come to church? How many of you all, when you're considered, do you still love God the same? How many of you all, when you're considered, you still still portray God in a way of pursuing him and the love that he have? Or do you get angry with God and ask questions like, why me? Well, the question here's an answer to that question. Why not me? Why not me? Because see, once Adam and Eve sinned in this world, they brought sin into this world. And so therefore, we were born in sin, shaping in iniquity. There's some things that's going to happen to each and every one of us before we exit this place. And some of those things are going to be pleasant, and some of those things are not going to be pleasant. Some of those things you're going to enjoy, and some of those things you're not going to enjoy. And that's all because of sin.
What an awesome message. And here's an opportunity for all of us to participate in the blessing of giving by using our PayPal link on our website, www.3mbc.org, www.facebook.com/MMMBC, or by U.S. mail. Thank you, and may God continue to bless and keep you.